Welcome to Beyond the Red Carpet. Today I have a man who is an encyclopedia of movie knowledge, Mr. Leonard Maltin. Welcome, Leonard.
Nice to see you, Francine.
Several years ago, I was writing a book and I asked you if you wanted to be part of it, but you said you were doing your own, which I was so anxious to read. And it just came out just now. So it's Leonard Maltin, Starstruck. And I advise anybody who is interested in Hollywood at all to get this book. It is fabulous. And I mean, we could spend 8 hours talking about it because it's just packed with information. But let's start off with, you started in the movie business, writing, or in the journalistic part of the business at age 17.
No,
Before that.
Before that, when I was 13, I had my first article published in a what we used to call fanzines. Now that they'd be blogs, or websites. But in the olden days, a fanzine was an amateur magazine. Some of them were very elaborately produced, some very, very minimal. I used a mimeograph machine, if anybody remembers what those things were like. And before that, a hectograph. Have you ever heard of a hectograph?
That's a new one on me.
Well, you remember ditto machines who are not so very different from mimeographs. We're both doing the same turning gesture here.
Cranking them up, yes.
Well, hectograph was the lowest of the low, lower tech than anyone could think of today. It was a hardened vat, like a 9x12 vat of gelatin that is very solid. And if you took a ditto stencil and drew on it and typed on it, and then brushed the gelatin with very lightly with a sponge and put a piece of paper down on it, when you peeled up the piece of paper, it had copied whatever it was in the gelatin. And hecto in Latin means 100, which means it should have yielded 100 copies. My friend and I who did it, we called it the 35-ograph, because that's when the copies started getting blurry. But it only cost $3, which was just our speed at that time. So
well, at 13, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, 2 years ago, my daughter and I interviewed George R.R. Martin. We went to Santa Fe to talk to the creator of Game of Thrones. He started out producing his own fanzine using a hectograph. So I'm in good company.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. And you are a self-proclaimed film nerd. That's something we have in common. And you also, several times in your book, you refer to yourself as one lucky guy, because you have had an amazing career. I'm curious to find out, since you, like I said in the intro, you are an encyclopedia. You have movie guides out for how many decades, but what's the thing that people want to know most? What question do you get asked the most?
Oh gosh, people always like origin stories. How did you get published so young? How did you get hired by Entertainment Tonight? Things like that. And the answer in almost every case has to do with good fortune, smiling. I did not seek a career in television. I ultimately had one, but it was sort of thrust in my lap. My experience with television was that of any author going on different shows, radio, TV, and plugging my book. And I wrote a book in 1978. Remember 78?
Oh yeah, kind of.
Called The Great Movie Comedians, and I was being interviewed on the Today Show. That was a great booking, then or now, a network, television show. And Gene said, "Do I have to stick to these questions from the pre-interview?" I said, "No, ask me anything." And we had a very loose, lively, fun interview. And that's in New York City, where I lived, where I grew up, and 3,000 miles away, here in Los Angeles, a man at Paramount Television saw that interview and called the men who had just been hired to save a fledgling show called Entertainment Tonight. And he said, "You're looking for a film critic, aren't you?" And the guy said, "Yes." He said, "I saw a guy on the Today Show. I think you should check him out." So my phone rang in my New York apartment a couple of days later. And that led to me flying out to LA, doing 2 movie reviews as an audition. And then 3 nights later, they ran the first audition tape on the air without telling me.
Whoa. So you were on the Entertainment Tonight for 30 years, is that
30
correct?
years altogether,
Wow.
yes.
That's great. That's a great run. Oh, okay. So you were talking about your pre-interview. Also mentioned in the book, like I said, I can't go through everything in the book. It'd take us 8-10 hours. But you talk about in the green rooms. I have had some amazing conversations with, I can think of this one specifically with Shirley MacLaine before we were waiting to go into an interview. How do I put this? Have you been privy to a lot of secrets in the green room that you're not allowed to talk about?
No,
No?
I'm sorry to let you down.
I thought I was going to scoop there.
As my longtime publisher said about this book, there's no dirt. And really there isn't. I think
No,
they're
it's
colorful
lovely.
stories, but no dirt.
Okay, well, no, I've had sometimes when somebody would tell me something, they said, "Oh, please, that's not for publication." So, but let's go through. Do you still teach at USC or?
Yes, I do.
You do.
I'm in my 23rd year at USC.
I bet you your classes are full. Everybody wants to go to.
Yeah, well, they're full not just because of me, or not necessarily even because of me, but because we show new movies every week, just before they open in theaters, and so we have a pretty full house, and it's not just film students. I have water polo players, I have English majors, and I have people from all over the campus, because and this was the school's idea, not mine. They want to make everybody more film literate. I say on the opening night of every semester, I want to make you a smarter audience. That's my goal. And we do that by not only showing a wide variety of films, not just big studio blockbuster type films, sometimes foreign language films, little indie films, documentaries, but also by having guests every week. And again, not just the director or the writer, but costume designer, production designer, composer, casting director. We've had all sorts of people. Last week, we showed the James Bond film, and we had the 2 film editors. It took 2 people to go through all that material and make the most of it. And they're very articulate, and give a real sense of how challenging it is to take truly the raw material and then use that to fashion those great action sequences, and through it all remain diplomatic, because as you're sitting there in your editing bay, as they call them, it's not just the director you're sitting with, but on an important film like that, the producers, the executive producers, the producers' spouses, people are going to come through and stop and give you, often unsolicited, their opinions. And if you want to keep your job, you can't blow them off. You have to be able to deal with that, and understand that you are always kind of under a microscope. So it's a lot about relationships. And I think a lot of things that we hear from our guests are life lessons, not film school lessons, but life lessons.
Well, in your book, you discuss that you have 2 loves. You have your love of movies, films, and your love of music, jazz mainly. And I know Clint Eastwood is a big jazz fan and a composer. And in here, there's a picture of you and Clint talking. And do you talk with him on a personal level sometimes about music or films other than when you're just working? Do you get to talk to him about things?
A little bit, a little bit. He's a little bashful talking about music, though he's very proud of the films that he has composed the scores for, as he has, the past 10 or 15 years.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize that he does compose a lot of his own music for his movies.
And he, and he earned a living as a pianist in local bars and restaurants when he was a young man. So he's very capable. But no, I haven't. Actually, one of my favorite jazz clubs here in the San Fernando Valley closed several years ago, but they used to have big band night on Mondays. And I went one week to hear a band that I particularly liked, and left after the second set. And it was a school night, as they say, and apparently as soon as I left, Clint arrived. So I just missed out.
Oh, that would have been fun.
Yeah.
Okay, being that you are the quintessential movie encyclopedia, do you have a genre that you like better than the others? Are you more drawn to drama, musicals? I love musicals. Or comedy, rom-com, sci-fi? What really intrigues you the most?
Well, my favorite is comedy, but then I'm referring to the kind of comedy I grew up watching. And I grew up watching Laurel and Hardy and the Little Rascals, or Our Gang, and Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton, the titans of silent movie comedy. That's not to say I don't like contemporary comedy, but it's rare that you find a really good one that isn't also incredibly raunchy, and that is not my taste or my style.
Yeah, join the club. Join the club on that. I want to talk about your association with Disney. You met Walt Disney. You knew Walt Disney. You didn't.
One of my great regrets is that I was living on the other coast, and
okay.
Had I been here, I would have, crawled through, crawled on broken glass, as they say, to get to him. And the chapter I wrote about Disney was my way of explaining how many people who were close to him I did get to meet and spend some time with. So I trying to get a sense of him. I was very friendly with his elder daughter, Diane, and her husband, Ron, who ran the studio for many, many years, Ron Miller. And some of the animators and story men and people who were very close associates of his. So putting that together like a mosaic, putting that all together, I think I have a picture of the man, though I still would have given anything. If I could step in a time machine right now, he'd be the first person I'd want to see.
Well, see, that's another thing we have in common. We have movies, we have jazz, and we have Disney. And you are considered a Disney expert. You're on many of their bonus features on the Blu-rays and their discs. How did that come to be? You're part of the Disney Treasures. You go and do you research a lot, or do you just have that knowledge and bring it to us?
It all began oddly with his demise. The day he died in December of 1966, I was home from school, and when I heard this terrible, terrible news that he had passed away, I grew up in the suburb of New York City, Teaneck, New Jersey, and we had a Manhattan phone book this thick, and I looked in the white pages, found Walt Disney Productions on Madison Avenue in Manhattan, and I made a cold call and said, can I speak to somebody in publicity? And they put me through to a nice woman who I said, I published a little magazine for film buffs called Film Fan Monthly, and I want to devote the next issue in its entirety to the films of Walt Disney. She said, what can I do to help you? Instant reaction. And I said, well, I need photos from this and this and this. She's, whatever you want. She and I are still friends.
Wow.
All these years later. And it turned out that her father, her name is Arlene Ludwig, and you may know her.
I know her, yes.
And her father, Irving Ludwig, ran Buena Vista, ran their distribution company for many, many years. So that was my first connection, was Arlene, and who introduced me to other people. When I made my first trip to Los Angeles, she made it possible for me to visit the studio and meet, you know, some really interesting people. And then I wrote a book called The Disney Films, and where I did a blow by blow on every feature film he made, and chapters on the shorts, chapters on the cartoons and the TV show as well. And some years after that, I pitched an idea to Dick Cook, who for many years was the president of the company. He started out as a jungle cruise operator down at Disneyland in Anaheim. And he worked his way up through the ranks and became the president. And he seemed like a very nice, approachable guy. So I approached him and said, can I pitch you an idea? He said, sure, let's have breakfast together. And he picked a restaurant right near the studio, not far from where I lived. And I pitched him the Walt Disney Treasures. I pitched him an idea where we would do DVDs, and they decided to do limited runs. You know, in fact, the first ones were actually numbered on those tin cases.
On the tin cases, yes, I remember those.
And I said, you're just throwing out Donald Duck cartoons with no rhyme or reason. If you put them out in an organized way and gave additional features like interviewing the voice people, interviewing the story people, any number of angles there, then you would please the film buffs and the Disney buffs, as well as families and kids. It wouldn't harm anybody who didn't have that extra interest, but you'd be adding bonus material. And I did it for 9 years. We did 37 volumes. And then when Turner Classic Movies acquired Disney Library, they hired me to introduce the films.
That further reinforced your tie to Disney.
Exactly.
Yes. Well, I would have thought, I'm looking at your background now, you have movie posters and movie memorabilia. My house is Disney. My house is everywhere. It's Disney. I was wondering if you had Disney memorabilia around as well.
Oh, just everywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm wearing my Mickey Mouse watch.
Oh, okay. Well, I have Minnie right back.
I see Minnie is perched there on your sofa.
Minnie's back there. Okay, I have done some shows about Disneyland, and a lot of people say, they've told me, oh, we don't want to go back to Disneyland. We don't like the company's politics. What are your views on studios and networks getting involved in politics?
Well, I wish I didn't have to deal with that.
I know.
And I dodge and duck as best I can. It's no secret that Walt Disney was a conservative man, both literally and figuratively. He was the early backer of Ronald Reagan. Again, this is public record and no secret to anybody. I don't discuss that in my book.
No,
because
you don't.
It's not a personal biography.
No.
So I really, nowadays, if you trace who owns what, all you do is step into quicksand
That's a good way of putting it.
at every turn.
That's exactly what I have found, especially the last several years. While we have some time left, let me go through a few names of actors and actresses. And let me get if you give me a few sentences on each one, what's your feeling about them? Let's start with Frank Sinatra.
Well, as a matter of fact, I teach at Frank Sinatra Hall on the campus at USC. His children decided to donate all of their father's memorabilia to the school, and I mean all. And
I did not know that.
We have a glass case. You should come over sometime. Right. We have glass showcases in the lobby with personal letters from FDR and every president up to Reagan, and I think maybe Gerald Ford. We have snapshots of him on the streets of Hoboken. We have all his gold and platinum albums stacked on one very high wall. Amazing stuff. And both of his Oscars, the one for From Here to Eternity, of course, but the other one people don't remember is he received an honorary Academy Award with an authentic Oscar statue for participating in a short called The House I Live In, which was about tolerance, made toward the end of World War II.
Right, right.
So I live in Sinatra land, and I have to explain why we play Frank's music as the students are filing in every week. But also, he was one of the very few genuine recording stars who maintained an equally prominent career as a movie star. I mean, there Doris Day, Elvis Presley, Bing Crosby, long before that. Very few had success, long-lasting success. Elvis Presley, that's another one.
Did you meet Elvis? Did you get a chance?
No, I wish. Another one I wish.
Another one. See, I have, so I would have loved to have met Cary Grant. I mean, seriously, I missed out on him. Jimmy Stewart.
Well,
what's your feelings about him?
Well, one of the great actors of Hollywood's golden age, and really, everybody felt they knew him. You know, he had that friendliness and approachability, but he had more range as an actor than he gets credit for, because for every one of the aw shucks, you know, characters that he played, those westerns he made in the 50s, Winchester 73, you know, all the Anthony Mann directed westerns, he's really a hard-bitten anti-hero almost in a lot of those. And even in It's a Wonderful Life, the scene where he's in Martini's bar, where he's having a breakdown, he's having a nervous breakdown right in front of our eyes. That's pretty heavy stuff. And you know, he's one of the giants, one of the greats. And working with him was one of the treats of my life.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, I saw him one day at Chasen's, and he did look very approachable. He wasn't. You see other people around, and you don't even want to say hi to them. Yeah. But he seemed like a really down-to-earth guy. Let's go on to Katharine Hepburn. Let's go get a woman in there.
My all-time favorite interview. And when I got the chance to interview her in the late 80s, she agreed to do an interview with the Today Show and with Entertainment Tonight to promote a TV movie she had just made, a forgettable TV movie that was just a vehicle for her. You know, it was tailor-made for her personality. And I got to go to her townhouse on East 49th Street, and we just started talking. And while the crew was coming in and setting up the cameras and all of that, we just talked. And when it was time to shoot the actual interview, I tried to make it as seamless as possible that we were going to start working
Mhm.
on a
Don't you just
television
love it when that
interview.
happens, when you just get a rapport with somebody that you're
Yep.
going to interview? I just think that's fabulous.
And she was so blunt and so opinionated. You know,
Definitely. Yeah, she
nothing,
was.
not a dull bone in her body.
No, I never did get to talk with her, but she would have been one I would have loved to. Um, George Lucas. Now that's somebody that you did know.
Well, I got a call out of the blue from 20th Century Fox asking if I'd be interested in interviewing Mr. Lucas for the first VHS cassette release of the Star Wars trilogy. And it came with a nice fee. And there was no reason to say no. But what happened was there was a technical issue and a timetable problem with getting the work done on time. So they called me again a week later and said, if we fly you up here to San Rafael, you know, and pay you again, would you do the interview from scratch? Where do I go? What time do I show up?
Yeah.
And we
Cool.
we developed a nice rapport.
Mhm.
And I've interviewed him now on so many occasions, and there's a very strong tie at USC, his alma mater. He wrote, I think, the single largest check anybody ever presented to a private university. It may have been topped since this occurred a decade or more ago. He wrote a check for $175 million to rebuild the School of Cinema, which is now called the School of Cinematic Arts.
Holy cow.
Holy
That's a
cow
big
is
hunk
right.
of money.
It sure is. And he had already had an architect's model, which he had commissioned. And he wanted it to look like a classical university campus. And
Oh
that's
my
what it does.
gosh. That's amazing. When you started writing your movie guides, this was at the time when we had VHS beta, or was it prior to that?
Prior to that.
Prior to that. Well, okay, so we have evolved so much. We started with just going to the movies when you can go and sit and watch all day long.
Right.
And then eventually we got be able to tape our own shows so we could see them at any moment. Then it went to from tape to DVDs, now Blu-rays and 4K, which is fabulous. Do you think it takes away from the actual movie when we get to watch them at home instead of going to a theater, or do you prefer the big theater experience? Because I prefer not. I prefer to watch at home.
Well, I
where
like
can
the
really pay attention.
convenience. Obviously, I like the convenience of being able to watch at home, and the idea that you can program your own film festival, you know, at home. But I love going to the movies, and I grew up going to movie theaters. In fact, I remember where I saw a lot of key movies my whole life. And I find that other film buffs have the same kind of recollection. I associate that film with that theater. Now, I don't know if young people associate a film with Auditorium 4. You know?
Yeah, this is when we had the one big theaters, and there wasn't all this multiplex with a zillion theaters and a zillion screens in one place. So yeah, it was a different time. I think that people are growing up today are missing a lot.
Yeah,
they're gaining a lot, but they're missing a lot.
Yeah, both things are true. You know, in terms of quality of presentation, what they're able to do now is beyond anything that the old masters would have envisioned. But you still have to maintain it, and sloppy management of theaters is one of my pet peeves. You know, I'm the guy who will be running up the aisle to the lobby saying, the sound's no good in Auditorium 4. So, you know, nothing's perfect.
Yes. Let's go to what you are currently doing besides promoting your book, which is, I highly recommend. And actually, people, Christmas gifts. This is really good. But are you still doing your show with your daughter Jessie? Where can people go to watch that?
Well,
it's very entertaining.
we do an audio podcast every Friday. A new episode drops, as they say. And why do they say that, by the way?
They do that with CDs drop on a certain day. Yeah, I don't get that either.
So every Friday, we have a new episode of that. And we've been doing that now over 5 years. And just have a great time. We talk to people that we admire. Everybody from Amy Adams to Mel Brooks, and back again. Veterans as well as contemporary people who are making their mark. Interviewed a lot of stand-up comics, and we just have a ball. And that's available anywhere that you get your podcasts, on iTunes, any of the other networks. And then on Sundays, we do a live stream for about an hour since the pandemic, where it's just us talking. Sometimes my wife, Alice, joins us. And it's just, we're just hanging out for an hour and answering questions on a live basis. People pepper us with questions. And we can do that now. The technology is extraordinary.
That's fun, because I have met your wife. I don't believe I've met Jessie, but I've met Alice, and she's very sweet and kind. I just adore that woman. And it would be just like sitting in on your family, family night with you guys. That would be fun.
That's the idea. And we're on all the platforms. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and the other one.
Yeah. I don't keep, it's my job too, but I just try not to keep up with all that, that mess.
That's why you have kids.
Yes.
I don't get it. That's why Jessie is the one who keeps me sharp as I get.
Did she come to you and say, Dad, I want to do this with you? Or
no,
did you just...
it just evolved. It just happened. Wow. And she's become a very good interviewer. She edits me now. She's my editor. Everybody needs a good editor. Anybody who writes, who is honest, will tell you that. I mean, you may think what you've written is very, very good, but if another pair of eyes checks it out, it's not as good as it can be.
Right. A good editor is definitely a bonus when you're an author or doing anything. I found good ones and bad ones, and you're right. Okay, well, listen, I really appreciate your coming on and taking the time. So your book is out in bookstores now. Well, whatever bookstores are left.
Right, and on online and wherever you get books, you can get this one.
We won't mention any specific place. And it's really jam-packed full of stuff. There's so many things in there about you that I've never even thought. And I thought I knew you pretty well, because for 30 years I've been in this business and I've seen you all around. Of course, my hair was a different color, but it's just opened up a world to me about you and about actually the industry itself. So I'm grateful that you wrote it, and I'm sure your fans will really eat it up when they get it.
Well, that's great. Thank you very much, Chris. You've been at this a while too. A compliment from you has meaning.
Oh, well, thank you very much. And I hope to see you again in person one of these days when we start getting back into face-to-face time.
Whenever that may be.
Yeah, let's hope it's soon. Okay, well, thank you, Leonard, and I appreciate it. And for the viewers, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time when we take another look beyond the red carpet. Bye-bye.